welcome to this video on potential. I thought I'd take a moment to discuss just the potential of raw images. The image that you see here on the screen, doesn't really do anything for me. I mean, I like the image, I like the ship, it's a shipwreck in Iceland, and this is the raw image right out of camera, and when I look at it, it just doesn't kind of pop in any way. And the interesting thing is, when I first started shooting in RAW, I felt this way about a lot of my images. They were kind of flat and dull. And, your JPEG just looked different. In the back of the camera, when you're looking at the LCD, those are small JPEG thumbnails that give you just a different perspective. You see what you've shot in camera and you're like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then you get home and you look at the raw image and you're like, this is not what I shot. This isn't what it looked like. Now, how do I get there? And so I thought I'd just take a quick moment to discuss the potential of these images and why shooting in RAW is important. RAW provides you with the most opportunity because it has the most data. Those files are the largest. They've captured everything. The camera hasn't done any thinking for you. The problem is that sometimes when you look at these, you're like, wow, where do I go from here? They're flat, they're dull, there's no contrast, and that's exactly it. Because the camera hasn't made any decisions, there isn't any embedded algorithm making adjustments to the file. So just as a quick look at what I've done with this particular image, my first step was just some quick edits in Camera Raw. And I will go through a different image and kind of display how I got there, but just giving you an idea sort of globally how I approach this image. So this next layer, layer 1, is only adjustments done through Camera Raw. And basically all I did was create a duplicate of the background, open up the Camera Raw filter in Photoshop CC, and then made my adjustments. Then when you hit OK, they embed themselves in the layer. It is because they embed themselves in the layer, by the way, that I make a duplicate. Just in case I get to this point and go, I don't like it, I can always just erase this layer and start over. If you haven't made the duplicate layer, it will embed itself in your background layer. So then the next thing I did is I looked at this image and said, okay, well, now that I'm here, what would I adjust next? And for me, the sky is just a little bit too grainy. There was the end result of adding a gradient filter in the Camera Raw. And so I feel like I need to sort of soften that up. So I did that using Nik Define, which is sort of my preferred tool. And I did it as a single selection. You can see here on the right-hand side of the screen that I actually have a layer mask, and that layer mask is white on top and black on the bottom. The black hides the effect of the define layer. And so I did it through a selection, and I'm going to show you a trick about how to create a layer mask from Nik itself. And then the next thing I did was just a little bit of a levels adjustment, not very big. In fact, actually fairly minor, but it gave a little bit more contrast and nuance. But it still wasn't satisfied. For me, the image still lacked sort of pop in the ship itself. So for that, I actually used Nik Color Effects Pro, and I combined a few layers to sort of get to this image. And as you can see, I've taken this image a long way. And part of the reason I was able to is because I'm working with a RAW file. So let's take a quick look at this in sort of practice. We're going to open up another file. So this one, albeit slightly different, taken in the same day, similar conditions. So let's kind of go through my process. In this case, actually, probably one of the first things that I would do is start by just cropping the image. So I would choose the crop tool, and for me, I'm kind of symmetrical in this case. I'm looking straight on at this thing. I'm going to want it to be basically center. So simple crop. And that's just to start with. That's just mostly to rationalize how this is going to look in my head. I might still crop in on the ground. I haven't decided yet, but just straight away I want to crop to at least get this, the ship centered. As I said, I want to create a background layer, a duplicate of the background layer. So there's a couple different ways to do that. I can drag the background down to here and go ahead and set it on the new layer, which automatically creates a copy. I can create a duplicate layer by right-clicking on the background layer. It'll ask me if I want a copy, and I can say yes. I can use Command or Control J, Command on the Mac and Control on the PC, and that's a keystroke, will also create a background layer. So there's a couple different ways to get here. Frankly, you can actually go up to the layer menu and choose duplicate layer up there as well. So that's just a couple hints, but always create your background layer. So next up, we're going to go to the filter menus. And you'll see here by clicking on filter that you can get to the camera raw filter. And frankly, this is one of my favorite features in Photoshop, Creative Cloud, because prior to this, you could only access camera raw when you were opening an image or through smart object. This is a great way because you can apply camera raw at different stages of your process just because it's a filter. So you can work the sky, come back later, open it up again, work the ship, come back later, work the ground and grass. Any kind of pathway you want, you can use, and it's such a powerful tool that to me, I just think that was the best thing that they've done is make it a filter. So I would come in here and start kind of playing with sliders and see what I get to. Because this is an old ship, I actually like a crunchy look on the boat itself. So I'm just going to play a little bit, open up the shadows. But when I do that, it also is going to open up the shadows in the sky, which I do not necessarily want. So the levels that I'm just doing here, this is the basic menu, so it's kind of global block and tackle adjustments. This next adjustment I'm going to do is to choose the graduated filter. So you come up here and you can see this. You can either hit the G key or you can click this image here, which looks like the handheld graduated neutral density filters that you'll see. To go ahead, I'd start with just subtle adjustment. There we go. That's where I want. And just see what I'm going to get to. Now, as you can see, one of the neatest things about this graduated filter is that you can go at an angle. It doesn't have to be straight up and down, and you get to move it any way that you want. You can add any of the adjustments to it that you could on the basic sliders. So you can give it texture and bring out its contrast. You can open up highlights, or if you ended up with blown highlights, you can also back those off specifically within these filters. So I kind of think that that's enough. The next thing that I'd do is think about, well, what about the ship itself? It definitely needs to be brighter down in the bow here, and so to do that I will pick the adjustment brush, which you can either see in the top left corner here is the letter K, or you can click on the brush itself. And this brush tool is very much like the brush tool in Photoshop itself, which means that you can use your left bracket to make it smaller, your right bracket to make it bigger. If you hold down the Shift key and then left bracket, you will make the softness harder. If you right bracket, you can see this line on the inside. That's making the brush itself softer, so you can kind of pick the density of the brush. You can also do those adjustments here on the right hand side where it says size, feather, flow, and density. Auto mask means it's going to look for edges, and if you want to see what you're masking, you can check the mask button down here. I have my mask set to be red. You can set this to any color that suits you, but it allows you to see where your mask is actually going. So in this case, I'm going to open up the exposure a little bit, maybe not quite that much to start, and also add a little bit more clarity to bring out sort of the rust. Now you can see that I've turned the mask on. I've just done this so you can see what the mask looks like itself. And just kind of paint around. And you can see I can get all the way to the edge, and it's going to cling to the edge of the boat because there's a lot of contrast between that and the sky and the water and the mountains and stuff. To see the effect of what I've painted, where I've painted the mask, you actually need to uncheck mask. So I use that on occasion when I'm not sure that I haven't over masked something, but then I turn it off. Auto mask leave on all the time. And this allows you now to sort of play with the sliders and make decisions about the adjustments that you're going to put in here. So I'm actually going to choose new. Now the neat thing is that was add, so you can see that there's a pin here. I can actually then come up and choose new, and if I want, I can make a decision, which I'm about to, that the still kind of dark at the bottom. So opening up that just a little bit more. Now, if I decide that I don't like where I've masked, maybe I've over-masked something, you can also choose erase, and that'll give you a mask that does the same thing, a brush that does the same thing. I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller, holding down the Shift key, but it would allow me to erase a mask where maybe it got into the sky and I didn't want it up there. I would just go and choose erase, and then I would remove it. Add a little bit to the ground. Put up the grass a hair. So obviously these adjustments are sort of set to your preference and whatever it is that you want to achieve with the imagery. So I'm just darkening up the ground. All right, so say I've gotten to a point where I'm done, at least for a first pass. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And as you'll see, it doesn't create a new layer. It will bury itself within this layer that I created, the duplicate myself. And like I mentioned, that this is the reason I created duplicate, because if I hadn't, it would have made itself just part of the background layer. And then you would have had to either close it all and not save your changes and start over, or just kind of accept what you've done. And by creating a duplicate layer, it allows yourself, you just erase it, or change its opacity if it's too much or whatnot. So now, like I mentioned, I decided before that I didn't like how much crunch I got out of the sky with those previous adjustments. So how do I fix that? Well, in this case, because my edges are fairly straightforward, I'm going to just go ahead and choose the quick selection tool. Same thing, much like the brushes, the right and left bracket key can change the size of this tool. So you can kind of go ahead and select around. And as you can see, it clings to sort of the obvious edges. Now in this case, I'm going to go ahead and let it select some of this metal here because I want to get inside, but I can back it off. Similarly to the erase tool, if you hold down the Alt or Option key on your keyboard, you'll see that the plus sign, which is on the quick selection tool now, changes to a minus. So with that, I can just remove by just kind of touching over these little pieces of metal on the railings of the ship. I can refine my selection. Now, you don't have to be super careful. It just depends on what it is that you're actually removing the selection from, because in some cases it could be eyes, you know, in a portrait, in which case you're going to want to make sure that you've not softened eyes where you didn't want to. But in something like this, it's far enough away that it doesn't have to be perfect. So these two little pieces, this background one, won't be the end of the world if it's gone through the define. So now I'm going to go ahead and select from my bar here, define. And what you'll see happens is that because I did this as a selection, the only thing that is showing up to be defined is the sky, and then these couple of little pieces. So I go ahead and I let the bar, it's going to analyze, so I let it analyze, and you'll see that these little square boxes show up. That's telling me that it's working on those pixels, and by hovering my mouse in the sky and then looking at the loop in the bottom right hand corner, you'll kind of see that it's gone from kind of crunchy to kind of much softer, which is what I'm trying to go for. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now, the thing about this part of the process is that, as you can see, it's created a layer, it says define, and it only shows the sky. Now I still have my selection, which I'm going to leave for just a second because I'm going to show you a trick. You know, unlike creating a layer mask, right now I can't really do anything about the edge of this and making it softer and maybe so it's not so obvious. And it might not matter on this particular image, but you're going to be working with images in which it does matter that the edge is too hard and the level of define that you've used becomes really dramatic. And there's a trick that I found accidentally that allows me to pop a mask out of this. So if now, having touched nothing, leaving my selection chosen, if we go to edit and we hit step back, okay, that's the first step. Got to do it one more time, edit, step back again. Now if you look at our layer, it says knit collection instead of define, but I've popped the mask out. So if you see, my sky has still been softened, it's still less grainy than it was before, which was my goal, but I've in fact created a mask that I can now manipulate through the properties tool. So now I can hit deselect. So deselect. Now I don't have to look at the marching ants anymore. I still have this nice soft sky, but I'm able to feather the mask a little bit. I usually do a couple pixels, and all that does is allow the transition between what has been defined and isn't defined to be smoother. That's a trick. Keep that one in the hats, because that one, for me, I use it all the time. If I've just used a filter, any Nick filter, by the way, on a particular area, this is a way to create a mask that you can then adjust. So much like the other photo, I will choose a levels, and you can see that I have to open up my brights a little bit, and I tend to take down the midtones, and it adds just a little bit of contrast. Now, to bring out sort of the rest of it, just actually to go through the process, I will show you the last step that I did, which is to choose. Started off with Tonal Contrast. This is in Color Effects Pro. Wait for that to open a minute. There we go. And you can see it gets super crunchy. And that's okay, because I'm actually going to tone it down. Kind of like it a little bit as well. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that. Add the filter. And then I just played. You know, I couldn't decide really what I wanted to do. Did I want to, in this case, I might not even need to do the same things, but on the last image, I definitely chose Detail Extractor, which kind of opened things up and actually brought it out, made it much lighter. Then say we can do, and I also did Sunlight, which gave it a bit of a glow. And I think, if I recall, I might have taken out the Tonal Contrast on the other one. And these are additive. So every time that you add a layer, you end up with incremental adjustments. So in this case, I actually like the Tonal Contrast with a skylight filter, and I'm going to just remove the Detail Extractor. All right, and then my last adjustment will be to darken light and center. It's just a great way to add a vignette. I personally like them to be oval. And you can sort of see that this is where I started with the image after the levels adjustment. This is where I've gotten, and I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. All right, and there we go. Now, if you think that that's overdone, all you need to do is back off the opacity a little bit. And that's about it. So you can see that we've taken, again, a fairly flat raw image and transformed it in just a matter of simple adjustments to get to a final image. Now, obviously, this image may not appeal to everybody. I get that. Imagery is totally subjective. The only thing is that does it appeal to you? So if you're doing your work and you're happy with your end result, and this is, for me, an image that I'm willing to share at the end, then I would be done. And that's how to look at it. There's a couple easy, quick tricks, and to understand that raw images provide you the level of detail and data to work with to create an image that you want. So I hope that's been helpful. Take care, and thanks for watching.